ChatPRD is a on-demand chief product officer that helps you with your product work. Help me write a PRD. Teams plan features for ChatPRD. So then I just click go. And so it's going to go, great. Here it is. Gives me a problem statement, business goals, user personas, user experience, success metrics. I think this looks great. I want to build this all in 3 weeks. So document's been saved. So if I click document save, now I have it in a document format. We have some of these AI features.
You did this all yourself? Like, this is complicated. Document editors are hard to make.
Here's what is so fascinating. No, they're not. Like, I did this truly on a Sunday, Notion style editing in a day by myself while my kids were watching Aladdin.
Claire, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you. So for people who don't know, you are the Chief Product Officer of LaunchDarkly, a feature management and experimentation platform. And you are also the founder of ChatPRD, which is an on-demand Chief Product Officer that writes and improves your PRDs. And we met at a sort of like angel investing retreat, and I was like doing bits about AI, and we just got into this like really great conversation. I feel like you're kind of in this really interesting intersection of like you're leading a business as a chief product officer, and then you're also like building this ChatPRD side hustle that is built with AI and uses AI. And so I think you just have so many like ideas going on in your brain about like what the future of this looks like. And so I'm just super excited to have you on.
Well, I'm excited to be here. It's something that I think about a lot. And as I was preparing for this conversation, it's something that I took a moment and reflected I use a lot. So I'm excited to just share a little bit about what I think and what I'm building.
That's awesome. So why don't you like give us a little bit of like a background on ChatPRD? Because that's the thing I'm like most interested in. It seems so cool.
Yeah. So, like all good workers, I'm trying to work, I'm maybe not like all good workers. I'm trying to work myself out of work. That's the ideal way to do things. And so when ChatGPT and some of these tools came out, I was all over it. It did not scare me. It felt like magic. And I spent a lot of time as an executive leader. I lead product and engineering organizations, many hundreds of people, pretty large responsibility. But I still have, believe it or not, more than meetings and like hiring great people to do, I actually have to output work. And so with a calendar like mine and the demands of a job like mine, anything that can be a help is very welcome. So I started using ChatGPT to help me basically write product strategies and product specs. We were a fairly, I would call a scrappy team at my previous company. And occasionally I would ICPM or more technical products. And so something would come up, it would be pretty complex. It would span product and engineering. And I would raise my hand and say, hey, I'll write the spec for that. I think I have a sense of what we need to do. And there's this very specific example of us building a pretty complex and custom data audit tool. And I raised my hand in the meeting, I remember at 10 a.m. And then by 2, I had this like full 5-page spec, and my team was like, what just happened? How did you do that? Because you've been in meetings all day. Like, what was that? And it was because I had, over the course of months, sort of like prompted ChatGPT into a place where I could really work with it in a pretty rapid fashion to get high quality outputs. That wasn't just going to happen with just using kind of plain ChatGPT, like GPT-4 at the time, I think. So when the GPT store came out, I thought, okay, I'm just going to like dropped my, my joke is it is just a prompt, but she's my prompt. And so dropped my prompt into the GPT store, got the like great name ChatPRD, which I think is it's good stuff. People love it, and shared it with my team. And I was like, you all can use this if you want to know how I do it. And they all loved it. And so I was just kind of joking around, and to my husband, I said, we should just buy the domain on it. Of course, it's got to be .ai. So, I spent my $60 or whatever, because there's a premium on these AI domains, and bought ChatPRD.ai and just put up a newsletter sign up form and a link to the GPT. And so many people started using it. And, still with the GPT store, I think it's in early days. So even though I was getting a lot of use, there was no monetizing things. And I'm sorry, I'm the kind of product person that needs to make money off the things that they build. So over Thanksgiving last year, between, like hosting the kids and doing stuff when they were napping, I dusted off VS Code and I was like, I think we can build this. And so I built it over the course of Thanksgiving week with my kids home while they're napped. We can talk about all the ways I used AI to make that really, really easy. And launched it, I think on November 28th. So she's 6 months old. And just put it was like $2 a month. I was like, I don't know, who knows what somebody's going to pay here. And people started buying. And then I started to add a little bit more features and raising the price, and people started buying. And now I have, I think, 10,000 users on the app that I host. Over 50,000 chats have been done on the GPT. It's somewhere between 50 and 100,000, because I think that's where they bump you to the next tier. And I started to build out a lot more than just chat features on the product. So it's been really fun to build. And I think I have 285 ChatPRD chats in the last 6 months. So I use it a lot.
That's wild. There's so many things I want to dig into there, but I want to just sort of summarize the process that led you here, because I think it's a sort of generalizable thing. I actually have something similar in my own life that I've done with this, where it's it seems like you used it yourself and you built up a very complicated prompt that reflected your worldview and your skills and all the ways that, and your process for making PRDs. Actually, before I keep going, can you define a PRD for people who don't know what it is?
I now say ChatPRD is a on-demand chief product officer that helps you with your product work, because we've really expanded past PRDs. But a PRD is a product requirements document. It's generally a doc or a spec that defines the problem space that you're going after when you're building a new product, kind of what users want. If you have one user or multiple users of the product, what are their incentives? What do they want? What are their goals? What are their non-goals? And then kind of details out some of the features and capabilities you would need to make this meet the needs of their goals. And then a lot of teams and companies use it also to outline things like tracking plans, security risks, technical considerations, marketing campaigns. So it's sort of the source of truth for when you're building something new as a product, whether it's a very small feature or a brand new company, sort of the written record of what that's going to be.
Okay, that's great. So basically, in the process of doing these yourself, you realize ChatGPT is really useful. You create these prompts that help you build good PRDs, and then you realize oh, this is sort of complicated for me to prompt manually all the time. And then you start just making a GPT, and then you share it with your team. Your team loves it. And then you're sort of off to the races. Okay, I'll have it on the store. Maybe I'll build my own version of it. But I think that's the sort of repeatable process that I think a lot of people are finding is off on your own explorations, make something awesome, make some awesome prompts, and then you can sort of productize that.
Yeah. And I think the key that we're not talking about is how do you distribute it? Because unless you are maybe featured in the GPT store, which can get you distribution, you really you own your own distribution for even the GPT store or an app. And so I was lucky enough to have a good number of people who follow me for product content. So it was right in the wheelhouse of who might find it useful to use the product. And then it creates that virtuous cycle of word of mouth distribution. But I do think distribution still is a challenge for anybody kind of going down this path.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And so just to back up to sort of the beginning of the story, tell us about what you were using it for initially. What were the sort of initial prompts that you were working on? What were the tasks that you've or the mini tasks within making these documents that was actually helpful for you?
Yeah. So basically we have a PRD template. So we have every time you're going to build something, here's what we just generally expect you to outline and write. And then as people write those, then we have, at my old company, we called it PRDR, Product Requirements Document Review Meeting, where we actually debate both asynchronously in comments and then live sort of the thinking in this document. And then it becomes a source of truth for what to build. So we had this template, and PMs, including myself, would, once a week sit down and be like, I got to pick up that next project, and sit down and start with a almost blank slate, a template, and go, okay, I got to write this whole thing out. And they end up being somewhere between A mini PRD would be just like a 1 page up to like 7, 10 pages, just depending on the complexity of the product. And a lot of times you're doing things like it needs to have roles-based access, and like these very non-specific but functional requirements need to be outlined. And if you forget them, then engineering goes off the rails and you get a product where you forget to build a whole bunch of table stakes features. And so what I would do is I would paste it and I was like, this is our template. This is like the type of company I'm working at. And then just word vomit, here's the product that I think we need to build and why. And it would scaffold out then all those sections, combining the context of the template, what I've said about the business, kind of like high level, what I've said about the product I want to build. And the thing that really was the aha moment for me was not that it could do that. Obviously it could do that. It was that it thought of functional requirements. I would have truly forgotten it. And I think I'm pretty good. I've been doing product for 20 years. Like I am pretty good. And when I was building this audit feature, I was focused so much on the data we needed to ingest and how people needed to audit. And then when I was generating this PRD via AI, it said like, you need filters. And I was like, of course I need filters. Like, obviously I need filters. And somebody probably in a meeting would have said, Claire, you need filters. But I could have but it put it in the doc. And it was just one of these moments where I was like, oh, it's a little buddy that I can have that can just like round out the edges of my thinking, make me a lot more efficient, and remind me of things even that I need to include where my fallible human brain fails me.
I love that. I think that's really common too. It's like some of the stuff that you learn from it, it's not stuff that you wouldn't already know. It's just like you might not have thought of it. It like finds the simple things that you're missing, and that is sometimes so valuable, especially if you're working alone. Like you have a team and stuff like that. But like building ChatPRD where it's like I think it's you and maybe one other person part time. Like it's sometimes hard to. It's hard without a buddy to remember that stuff, and ChatGPT is that. I'm really curious, like, to get into like how you're using it. Like, do you want to show us some of your
sure.
historical ChatPRD chats?
Share my screen. Okay, so this is ChatPRD, and some of the things that I think are really unique compared to the GPT store is how, one, not only I've customized it, but you can actually customize it to yourself. So you can tell.
Wait, can I pause you right here for 1 second? Like, this is really beautiful and like well built. Like, how is this built?
I did it. I mean, this isn't magic. If anybody's building stuff right now, I'm going to be like, it's a Next.js app, like mostly Tailwind. I have good taste. I don't know. It's pretty. I think one of my other learnings here is it is so cheap and easy to build high quality web apps right now. And as somebody who's built web apps many times in their lives and run very large engineering teams that build web apps, it's actually not that hard to build something pretty phenomenal. It's a database on a website. So thank you. I appreciate that. I try to put love in it. And we can talk about how actually I think building solo does increase quality and velocity in many ways because you're short-circuiting the loop between product engineering and design in a way where, like, I think in a traditional team where you have multiple people playing that role, you lose fidelity of kind of vision. And so one of my interesting ideas is with something like ChatPRD, like plus a co-pilot or like a Devin, do you actually collapse and focus the ability of one person to build something? And does the quality actually go up because you're not negotiating these, you're not deciding by committee, you're deciding kind of like one person. So thank you.
Yeah, having everything integrated. It's the same thing with like the multimodal models. It's like a lot of the stuff gets better when you integrate the image recognition and the video into the intelligence portion. And it's like, integrating development, design, and product thinking into like one person is going to like, you have faster cycles. So it's going to be higher quality. I think that's really cool. And did you use ChatGPT to code this, or did you code it by hand?
Of course I use ChatGPT. Okay. I mean, look, I can write some code, but it's much easier to say, I mean, I take a PRD from ChatPRD and I'm like, hey, this is the component I need to build. Can you just scaffold it out for me? And then I can play with the edges on design or functionality. And that kind of stuff. So of course.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to before I interrupted you. So like you're in settings.
Yeah, so you can customize your profile. So one, you can tell it a lot about yourself, who you are and what you do. It remembers that, so it has memory. So unlike, well, I know ChatGPT has memory now, but a lot of times previously when I was building this, I'd be like, tell me about your role in product, tell me a little bit more about your company. And so we're just stabilizing that information. Mm-hmm. And then, as I said, most companies have a template. I have a pretty good one that I think I use as a default, obviously, because it's mine. But you can also add your own template of PRDs. So say you're like, you have a TLDR, which I always do, short summary of the product doc. And then you have functional requirements are super important, and put functional requirements in XYZ format, whatever it is. You can actually use a custom template here. This is something that's just really useful for people as they're using this in the business context to get consistency and again not have to manage that prompting. But what I use it a lot for are two things. I use it to, well, maybe I use it for three things. I personally use it for writing PRDs for ideas I already have or brainstorming features on the roadmap. And then as a product leader, I use this help me improve an existing PRD to coach my team on how they can improve their PRDs. So those are sort of three things, but let's just talk about help me write a PRD. So one of the things that I've been working on is a Teams feature for ChatPRD. So right now, ChatPRD is sort of like in single player mode where individual PMs can use it, but we've gotten a lot of feedback that people want a Teams version of ChatPRD. So I'm going to say, help me write a PRD. I'm going to be really lazy and say Teams plan features for ChatPRD. If I can, okay. So then I just click go, and it's going to say.
Do you normally do that level of detail, or are you normally like writing more stuff when you're actually doing this?
I'm pretty lazy. I usually do this. Because again, I've prompted ChatPRD to like ask for stuff if it doesn't have enough information to do a good job. So you can see it's like, okay, well, that's great, but what do you want? And so I say, I've gotten a lot of feedback that teams want to use ChatPRD, PRD together. They have a few priorities: shared billing, shared templates, and stored company context knowledge, sharing chats and documents with each other. If you have other ideas, please share them. I think we can grow to 100 Teams accounts by the end of the quarter. Okay. It's like very, very high level. And so it's going to go great. Here it is. And so it gives me a problem statement, business goals, user personas, team lead, user experience, like how you might onboard team members, how shared billing, all this stuff works. A narrative, which this is a little thing that I've injected here, which I feel like PMs are very bad at pitching their story. So I've added that in: success metrics, technical considerations, milestones, and sequencing, etc. Okay, this is an okay start, but I actually feel like the user stories are really lame. So I'm going to say expand out the user stories, focus on a few personas: billing lead, team lead, admin, individual team users.
Before you hit enter, I'm just sort of curious, like, what do you like as a product leader, like, and you're reading these, like, what is standing out to you as like the user stories are sort of like lame?
It's just very, very high level. So they're just, obviously, but then comma how. And so I just think, yes, I want to share chats and documents with my team so we can collaborate efficiently. Let's get much more specific.
Okay.
Actually, instead of a little more detailed, I'm going to say be a lot more detailed. Outline features and sub features that might be useful to all these personas. That's great. Great question.
I think I'm asking because, like, for me, sometimes it's hard, like, seeing something like that from ChatGPT or honestly from people that work for me. like I can kind of tell that it's kind of high level, but it's hard for me to like have that. Like my eyes can just sort of glaze over and I can skip it and be like, yeah, like that kind of like, that kind of makes sense. Like, and I'm just sort of, I want to know what's in your brain to be like, okay, no, we gotta push in there.
Yeah. I think it's specificity, and I think this really shows itself up in the user experience. Now we've gotten something a lot more detailed on onboarding team members, where it's like, okay, we're going to invite them via email. There's going to be a welcome guide. There's a secure link. There's roles and permissions. Here are actually the roles and permissions that you need to build. So this to me feels much more specific. I'm like, oh, okay, I could hand this to an engineer now. Yeah. And instead of saying we need roles and permissions, it says we need these 3 roles and permissions.
Right. You can like see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Yeah.
And so here's where I think ChatPRD, the app, gets really interesting. I think this looks great. I want to build this all in 3 weeks. Today is June 5th. Update the timeline. So then the only other thing is, I think, is the milestones. And so then it's gonna regenerate this document, include all the updated user stories, which we have. So now we have these more detailed user stories, which I'm very happy about. And then it should generate more milestones in a more detailed way. And I tend to be very aggressive. So I give it like, I want to do this in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. Most teams tend to know how quickly they want to do things, but have a hard time like breaking down those milestones. And so I find I use milestoning and sequencing pretty frequently here as a structure or scaffold for how we might do milestones. So here, like, it's like initial development, building features, 10th to 13th, 14th through 17th, beta testing and launch. So it's got this nice, like, okay, can I hold myself accountable to that? Can I build that into Jira? And then this is where we go beyond sort of what you could do in a GPT store, which is we have this idea of save as a document. Look at this nice little solo error. It's slow. Sometimes docs are incomplete. I've talked to OpenAI about this, like their actual team, and I've pushed the edges of some of their function calling. So we're just going to see. We're going to wait for this to load. And while it loads, I'm wondering if you have any questions.
I always have questions.
This guy takes forever.
That's very cool. One of the things I was going to ask you is like the decision to have this be a chat feature instead of like a document that you are progressively filling out, like a document editor type interface. How did you think about that choice?
Well, it's actually both. So if we can get this loader to if we can get the robots to spit back out, I actually think multimodal is the way. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Look at that.
Yeah, that was fine. Yeah.
So document's been saved. So if I click document save, now I have it in a document format. I can actually toggle back and forth between chat mode and doc mode. This is like the magic. And then
will it edit the document that it creates? So like if you go back into the chat mode and you're like, I want to add something more to the user stories, will it go and edit the document, or does it regenerate the whole thing?
It has to regenerate it right now because the way things work, but we're getting there. And here's the proof that we're getting there. We have some of these like built-in AI kind of features here.
That's cool.
So if I'm like, oh no, we're hardcore, we need this like very business.
You did this all yourself? This is complicated. This is complicated. Document editors are hard to make.
No, here's what like is so fascinating. No, they're not. Like this is a solved problem. This is a solve. I'll give a startup a shout out. I'm using TipTap Editor. A couple of AI companies are using. Like I did this truly on a Sunday. I built live. It's real-time collaboration. If you want it, it's like ready to go. Notion style editing in a day by myself while my kids were watching Aladdin. Like
I love it.
There's just I just tell people like there is no excuse to not be able to build something. So we have this document.
You're such a badass. Like it's just it's like it's undeniable.
I have interesting hobbies. But yeah, we have this document node now where then what I do, okay, so that took me like 5 minutes to get all of this, which we love. And then I come in here and I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna go down actually to we don't have it in here. Let's add it in. So I don't have technical considerations. So I would go back and be like, I don't have technical considerations. And so it said, hey, making changes to the doc, you can ask for more feedback. So the chat definitely has context of any changes I made to doc. I'm going to say, I forgot to add, we use Stripe billing and subscriptions. Can you add a section that accounts for the technical and implementation considerations for billing? Also, I use clerk.dev. All the startups are getting shout outs.
Clerk is so good. We use Clerk for some internal incubation stuff. And like, it's just, you get so much stuff for free in the user management stuff that like would normally take you like, even with AI, it'll take you like a day or two to like integrate Google sign in or whatever. And Clerk is just, it's really good. Shout out Clerk.
Yeah. So now I can tell it, okay, now we're getting into like how we might actually build this. And so it's going to take into account, okay, what it knows about the Stripe billing capabilities, what it knows about Clerk, and actually give me some technical considerations that I think are really helpful when handing it off to an engineer. Spoiler alert, like I'm the engineer.
Handing off to yourself.
Like, that's how I might structure the data, or that's how I might do it. So here you go. Integration with Stripe, manage subscription plans for team, implement one with Hisner, like all this stuff. Yeah, this is what I need to do.
Here's a question for you that like I'm actually thinking through real time, because like we at Everywhere, like we build little products. We have a couple incubations going right now. Like, are you using this yourself for ChatPRD? Like, at what scale do you think like this level of planning is helpful? And if you're using it for your sort of like to help yourself track stuff, like what does it do for you that that you think it adds?
So what I think is helpful, so I think it's very helpful at very small scale, single me, to very large scale, multi big team, because I've seen it work at both sides. At the very small scale, this is what's helpful, is there are a lot of benefits to working solo, a lot. But like if I were to approach this, I would like start in one corner and be like, okay, let's like integrate organizations. And then I'd be like, what next? And then I'd have to like sit there and think about the architecture and the sequencing and how I might do it. I would forget. I'd be like, I never want to build a billing page. Like, that's terrible. I don't want to do that right now. And if I don't want to do it right now, I'll never do it. So what this gives me is like, then I'll just go pop this and we're going to build an integration with like Jira, Linear, etc. I'm going to pop this. It's just going to go create like a project plan for me. And at least I have my to-do list of things to do anchored on a document. So as you can see here, it updated it, it resaved the document and go back to it. And it should have technical considerations dropped it. It's like fun when you do a live demo.
And it works. Yeah.
Actually works. So now I have all this. And then what I would do is I would actually like share it. And I would copy the share link. And then what I typically do is send it in Slack to Elisa, who works on our team. And I'm like, what do you think about this? And she opens it up and gives me some opinions. When we launch actually the team feature, we'll add commenting, we'll add like actual inner team sharing and stuff like that. And
that's really cool.
Yeah, that's what I use it for.
I love it. I'm thinking that we should be using this internally, like, because we use Notion, which I also like Notion, but like, I think we could put these docs honestly just in Notion, and we don't really have a set product management like flow, because it's mostly just been me like building stuff myself until recently. And now it's like we have a couple of engineers and a couple other people involved. And so it's getting to that scale. And one of my failures as like a product person is like I get too excited about whatever's new, and then I forget like the plan. And I think having a plan would be really helpful for us.
So the really surprised, so I built this like by product people for product people. That's how I built it. And actually the number one use case is engineers and founders that don't have a product person.
There you go.
And so like I have a bunch of engineers that are like, I work with this cuckoo founder who just has ideas.
Not me.
Not me. Build it. Right. And so they take the idea and they dump it in here and they're like, okay, well, like now I have a plan. Now I can build this. And I've used this for everything from, let me see if I can find a good one. Brainstorming features for roadmap. So this was actually how we built our summer roadmap. As I said, here are my 3 big themes. A lot of job seekers are using it, a lot of integration with productivity tools. So we're talking about Google Docs, Notion, Linear, and storing more context for user research. So these are things that people are wanting for us. And then it built out a bunch of ideas. And I said, no, let's build at least 5 ideas with 3 pillars, business goal, etc. It built it out. And then I saved that as a document. And so now I have like a roadmap.
That's really cool.
Basically, of stuff to build.
That's amazing. I don't know whether you've prepped to show this. So like if for whatever reason you don't have it, it's totally fine. But like, where is your like dashboard hub for like ChatPRD, like internally? Like what are you using? And can you show it to us? Like how are you organizing all the information?
Yeah. So what we use is Metabase. So I'm like just a write your own SQL kind of girl. I guess that's, that's how I use ChatGPT is I write horrendous SQL and I say, make this sensical or stop getting me an error. So I use, I'll just talk about my stack. How about that? I'll talk about my stack. So
oh, I meant like just, internally, like all of your docs, like your where are you saving these docs and like planning things and keeping things.
Oh yeah. So we use we use ChatPRD. It's basically the source of all our product documents. We use Linear for sort of like roadmap and feature tracking. And then we use Slack.
Okay. That's really cool. Yeah. I like, can I see the Linear or like, is that
yeah,
is that
it's not like, it's not thrilling. You're welcome to see it. Sure. Can you see my Linear? What is it? Linear, no, Linear app. I'm like app.linear app. Okay. Yeah. You can see our Linear. Please. This is like fun stuff. Okay. So Teams accounts, account settings, core chat stuff, fixed doc mode. This is like, can I work around OpenAI? We have bugs in general, improving onboarding and activation, integrations, marketing site. This is their onboarding stuff. And then we have our summer roadmap, which I just shared in our Slack channel. So it's no surprise. I'm working right now on like doc mode being really great. We're doing some marketing site stuff. I'm doing some like back-end billing stuff. Here's one of the things about being a solo founder on a thing you didn't think was going to be a real project. You get real lazy about like tracking billing. Fine. And then I was like turned around and I was like, we have thousands of users. I need to get better on like making sure subscription data and stuff is tracked in our database. I did a really interesting onboarding if I can show it to you. And then we're doing a bunch of integrations in our backlog. So this is our summer roadmap. I'll probably do a couple more things, but we track it here. And then Elisa and I do a release. I've done a release every weekend since I launched ChatPRD. Every single weekend. It's like my commitment to myself and to my community and to my users. Like every weekend I release something. And part of that is one, I just think product velocity really matters. And two, I'm trying to prove like, you can do this. I have a very serious, I'm like, look at this suit. Like I have a serious job and I still think you can build like something pretty incredible. And the cost of building is really pretty low. And so it's part of it is this like exploration and what it means to run an AI native business. And part of that is like, I think building is cheap and you should prove you could do it.
Yeah.
All the time.
How different is it, do you think, like in your view, like, could you have done this pre-AI? And what's the difference between you with AI versus you without AI in terms of your ability to build stuff like on the side?
So could I have done it pre-AI? Yes. Like I did a startup pre-AI. I was the only engineer on the team for 9 months of the company. Like, yeah, I could build a web app pre-AI. Here's what it is. I am a serviceable but not excellent software engineer. But I'm a quick study, like very quick study. It's one of the things I'm good at. And the way I got to where I'm at from a technical perspective is I sat across from somebody and I was like, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this better? How do I do this better? How did you do that? And now I just have that on demand. Like, these people, if they listen to this will know, like Yeland and Jeremy and Dave. Yelan and Jerry and Dave, all at different parts of their career, sat across from me. And now I'm a monster. And so now I have like a combination of them, digitally sitting across from me at any moment. And so if I want to learn something new, I can learn it very quickly and then I can put it into implementation without having to bring that like other person into a loop.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And yeah, I think I'm more asking like, on the side, like you have a demanding job, you have a family, like when you're talking about building things on the side, like what would you have had the time to do this, or and if so, like how much faster does this let you go?
No way. It's like thousands of times faster. I mean, I said this yesterday at an event. I did a startup before. It was a SaaS app. It's a website on top of a database. It was like a good website on top of a good database, but it was a website on top of a database. And it took us probably 5 to 9 months to kind of like build the serviceable first version of that. And I think if you gave me a coffee the size of my face and said on Saturday, like, go, I think I would have it done by Sunday afternoon. Like because you can stand up auth, you can stand up a database, you can stand up billing, you can do all these things. And then if I hit a wall, I go ask my like on-demand engineering buddy to write code for me and it gets written. So I think like that is the multiples of efficiency you get. And if we believe you can get multiples of efficiency on engineering output, then I absolutely believe you can get multiples of efficiency on product output. And this is where like some of our great testimonials are, where people are saying like, you're saving me 10 hours of work in 15 minutes. Like that's like great. Then use those 10 hours of work to do something really awesome for the company. So I think it is a tremendous amount of leverage.
That is really crazy. What does that say to you about like the future of product as a job, and like where does that go? What happens?
So I think there's a couple things that are going to happen. Maybe one is that I think the ratio of PMs to sort of like builder roles is going to shift pretty dramatically. One of the ChatPRD users said to me, I can now basically run, quote unquote, or lead a team of 20 engineers, where typically like the ratios you're seeing in a lot of companies are like 1 to 7, 1 to 10, maybe. So now you're going like 1 to 20. That's very different. And in fact, they said, I can do 1 to 20. I was going to hire an APM to help me, sort of more junior PM, and use ChatPRD and hire a designer instead, because I think that's the thing that's going to accelerate our building. So I think that's one thing. And then people are going to say, oh, Claire, but then you're ruining jobs for junior folks. That is actually not true, because then what we're seeing on the other side is junior PMs are able to ramp up and be much higher impact, especially in a remote context, because again, you have this on-demand coach that can help you up level what you're doing, which is very hard. If you ever look at my calendar, like, sure, I would love to coach every PM1 on the team, and I just do not have capacity to do so. And so I do think you're going to see like more junior folks have higher impact more quickly. And I'm really excited about that. And then the third thing, it's so funny. There's a bunch of kind of leaders at my level, CPO, VPs of product, et cetera, that are like, how is AI going to change things for them? But like, it's never like changed things for me. And I'm of the very strong opinion that one of the things very likely to be disrupted is strategic thinking as a differentiated value for a human. Like if a human, I think that these LLMs are really good at synthesis, applying like pre-existing frameworks. Like business schools exist, they've published their information, like pre-existing frameworks to business problems to drive specific outcomes. And so I use ChatGPT and ChatPRD a lot for strategic work. And I think that's partially because that's the part of my job that's most likely to be disrupted. So I better get really good at it, using these tools as opposed to sort of being on my back foot.
I love that. I mean, I love the sort of attitude is like, don't panic, just use it. If it's going to be good at it, like just use it. Like I can give up the strategic thinking and direct this thing to do it. What do you feel like is most likely to be left for you? Like what do you see the like PMs of the future being good at? Yeah.
I do think like inspiration and alignment and motivation of humans towards a goal is still just like it's very hard for something like AI to do. Getting teams excited about a mission, getting them close to the human impact of their work, which is like how it impacts customers. That's one piece that I think this sort of like influential and inspirational leadership, you're still just going to have. At the PM level, I do think that the ability to build things is going to become much more important. And my friend Waylon has this idea of like the proto-manager, which is instead of being a product manager, you're a prototype manager, and you're going to be expected to build prototypes instead of building documents. And I think that's like a really interesting thing to play with. So I think there's going to be like building is still going to happen on teams for a little bit until these kind of tools get a lot more consistent in their output. I think inspiration and leadership, and honestly, just convincing hordes of humans to do big things and be excited about it. Hopefully, I can still be good at that. And then I do think like these things are trained on past data. And so I think there's going to be some product leaders, and I think they might actually come from the design side or maybe in the engineering side to be able to see very far into the future and sort of set a place to go. Now, somebody else can map how you get to that place, but really having that point of view of like, what's the place you want to go? I do think there's some opportunity there for people to contribute.
Definitely. I definitely agree. I think you're totally right. Like, these things are quite good at sort of the well-trodden paths of the current and past reality. And sometimes you can take the like currently well-trodden paths and like project them out into the future. And they're probably going to be decent at that. But like when things are totally new and the world is changing, it's some things are totally unpredictable by LLMs, but I think humans are still pretty good at sometimes figuring that out or making it happen. It's not just like figuring it out. It's like just having the force of will or the vision to be like, this can work and I want to do it.
Yeah. And I think one of the other, reasons I'm doing ChatPRD, other than it's like a utility to me, it's very useful, is I do think product leaders and product managers and engineers, if you're not thinking about how to build actual like end user products in this new model with these new technologies, you're going to just be very far behind in terms of what that future is going to look and feel like to users. So I'll give an example of this, which is I had this onboarding for ChatPRD and it was fine. It was like 3 steps and it was like fill out your profile, do something else, and like billing. And it was fine. And but I looked at it and I was like, this just doesn't feel like an onboarding to an AI product. It feels like an onboarding to like any other SaaS product. It just feels the same. And so one of the things I started to play with, which is this new onboarding that we're doing, is I was like, it's a chatbot. So like, shouldn't the chatbot onboard you and tell you like what's going on here? And so it's okay. Like ChatPRD is telling me what's going to happen. Okay, then I get this form. Okay, we haven't done the form yet, but we'll get there. And then it's like, great, I'm nice to meet you. Here's all the places you can find us. Here's all the things like if you need to get help. And then it goes into our plan. So I just think that's been something that I've worked on and just try to play with, how are these products going to like look and feel? And should you do these like chat style onboard? And it's like fake. It's like just like little transitions in, but it anchors you into what's the modality of this product going to be and how are you going to like go into it and experience it moving forward. And it's been opportunities to play with ideas like that I think are really useful for me as a product person, regardless of what happens with ChatPRD.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So I know you have some personal stuff that you wanted to share about how you use AI. But before we get to that, is there anything else on the work side that you wanted to demo?
No, I mean, I think I'll give one more story and you can decide to use it or not. But just going back to the strategy side, this is really practical and very efficient for me. So our office is in Oakland, so I have to cross the Bay Bridge to get to the office. When people ask, how do you do it all? This is how I do it. So I have 23-minute commute. I've been at my company now for about 5.5 months. So hitting, it's time for me to like deliver the like, here's the capital P, capital S strategy. Like I've thought about it. Here you go. And I have all the context and information in my head for what we should do. I think I have a clear vision. And like, I'm going to have to write this thing down. And so what I did is I opened up voice chat GPT. I haven't done chat voice for PRD yet, but it's on the roadmap. And I just like said, this is what I think the strategy should be. And it was meandering. It was not well organized. And I said, oh, I'm thinking about this competitor and that competitor and this thing and that thing and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of my 22-minute commute, I had a I think a very good articulation of like what I think our strategy was that I did with like my hands on the wheel, crossing the Bay Bridge, looking at the beautiful skyline. And so I'm really leaning in because it helps me do my work at every level just so much better.
I have the same experience. I love it for that. Like I was recently negotiating a deal and we were sort of like pretty close to the end of it. And I had this like vague feeling that something about the deal needed to change, but I couldn't figure out why and I couldn't express it. And I just like took a walk and just like talked into ChatGPT for like 30 minutes. But yeah, it's like all these disconnected things where it's like, I can't put my finger on what it is, but there's something here that I can't say. And then at the end of it, I was just like, can you summarize it? And it just like laid out in 3 bullet points, like the exact things that I was trying to say, but couldn't say. And I was like, yeah, of course that's what it is, you know? And it's so helpful, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So I want to see some of the things you're using this in your personal life. You're using it to do things with your family. Like tell me about what you're using it for.
So when you have a calendar like mine and jobs like mine, and a life like mine, you are just drowning in information and you're drowning in requests. And so one of the things I actually did really early on is automate my email in 2 specific categories using OpenAI APIs where I felt like I was falling really far behind, but I had a very high volume of demands. And so those 2 categories were 1, being recruited for jobs, and 2, stuff from my kids' school. And so every day, this isn't like a flex, but like every day you get this message of like, hey, we have the highest growth CPO job on the face of the earth. We're making X million dollars, blah, blah. And all of them were a no. And in 7 years, if I want a job, I should like reply to these recruiters and be very polite and like tell them exactly what I'm looking for so that, you know, whenever I'm looking for a job in some like long-term future, they know what I want. And so I built an automation that looks for emails that are from recruiters. It checks the email against, I'm not taking a job, but it checks the email against types of jobs I would take, and then drafts an email back saying, I'm not interested, but these are the kinds of jobs I would take. And like recommends to me, sends me a Slack message that recommends to me next steps, whether it's like follow up, ignore this person or whatever. So that's been really useful. And I found that very constructive and it helped me like just get on top of stuff, especially when I was job seeking.
How did you make that? Like, what's the thing that's reading your emails?
It's a Zap. So it's a Zapier thing. So what I do is, you know, there's a dozen recruiting firms. So I look for everything with their email addresses plus anything that says like recruiter or talent in it. I tag it automatically with a filter in Gmail. And then the Zap reads all new emails on that tag and then sends the email to a completion endpoint in OpenAI and says like, answer this question about it. Like, what should I do? What should the email be? And then sends that answer back to me and then sends it to Slack and drafts in an email.
That's the best. And can you send the email from Slack and you be like, yes, send it? Or do you have to go into Gmail?
No, it goes into a draft and then it just like tells me like, you should go send this email.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love it. And is that how you got your current job?
Oh no, I'm just going to shout out everybody. No, that's not how I got my current job. The way I got my current job is CJ at Artisanal Talent, who always has the best jobs, texted me because he knows. And like, that's the kind of stuff that AI is not going to do yet, is like texted me and said, I know what job you're going to take. It's very, very accurate. But no, he did not do that. So that's an example 1. But the second place that I'm truly drowning, and any parent can empathize with this, is I get 7,000 emails a day from school. Like everything from 4th grade to this art project to like your kid's bleeding in the street and you need to come pick him up. Like it all goes into this, like they all have these apps. His apps have these messaging things. They send email notifications. They send push notifications. They're very long. Like these messages are very long and it's so much content. And I was losing like, what do I need to pay attention to and what do I not? So I'll try to share my screen without doxing my kids. I think I found a specific, I found a good one. Okay. So what this does is it reads the email from schools. And then at 3 or 4 p.m. every day, because that's like when I need to pay attention. It's like before I pick up the kids.
Yeah.
It says, summarize these in the like most succinct way possible. Only bubble up stuff that's relevant to Henry and Theo, my kids. And then like, tell me if I need to do anything. And so this is 1 day of emails, mind you. This is how much stuff. Which is one, my kid fell and like had glass in his hand, and it was a whole thing. And I had to email them and say like, be gentle. Another thing is like, I didn't do his costume. So I had to tell his teacher, he was in the ER all night, I didn't do the costume. The other thing was the teacher saying, no big deal, he's reading the book. Then there was like an all school sleepover that was postponed. And then like, this is the one that I would have missed truly as a working mom, which is like, picture day is tomorrow. Like, make sure your kids bag of muffins. And so it's this kind of like, every day I look at this and I'm like, great, I know exactly what to do. This is probably like 3,000 words worth of email. Yeah, and I'm just getting like the very succinct summary of it. And so this has been like just truly a lifesaver for me. And everybody operates in Slack. I operate in Slack. You cannot email me things. You cannot push it into an app. I need it like where I do my work. So that's been the lifesaver. And I think I'm pretty popular in the parents WhatsApp group, because whenever anybody's like, hey, what day is or when am I supposed to? I'm like, screenshot my little AI bot and say, I got you.
That's incredibly cool. I mean, that seems like a second product. Like, I feel like a lot of parents would pay for that.
Yeah, maybe. I'm like, as a public good, I'm willing to just teach anybody how to build it. I try to do things like I try to filter out things. I'm trying to be like pretty protective of information, but like this stuff where it's like my kids, I gotta get these summaries, man.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's truly incredible. I guess I'm curious, like, sort of towards the end of this discussion, we've seen this incredible product you're building. Like, what is the future of that for you? Do you want to run this as a business where this is the only thing you do? Is it like continually a side project? Like, how are you thinking about it?
I want to see if we can get it to $1 million.
That's
like,
where is it now? Can you share?
What?
Can you share what it's
we're
at now?
in six figures of ARR, 6 months.
Yeah.
Side project.
That's great.
Like, nice. My goal, I told everybody, I was like, my goal is I want to buy myself like a nice glass of wine once a week. Remember, I was selling this for like $2 a pop. I was like, I get a nice glass of wine like once a month or once a week, I'll be happy. And then I was like, I might get wine. And then my new ambition was I can pay for my kids' school. So I think we've definitely crossed that threshold. And now I'm like, can I pay for my kids' college? Like, it's really kid-centric milestones. We're funding that 529. But I think like intellectually, no. Here's what is very interesting about doing this is, look, I've got friends. Like, would they write me a check? Could they fund this? Sure. Like, where we met. Like, people would probably write me a check. I could like knock on your door and be like, pretty please. But
I'll write you a check if you want.
Thank you. But my question, that's not my question. My question is like, does this kind of product need that kind of check?
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, how do you build it? Like, what is this business? This is like more the intellectual side of me, which is I'm actually trying to, as somebody who really cares and loves technology and somebody who loves startups, I don't know if the current model of venture funding is the right model for something like this. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I just don't think it's not obvious to me that it is. And so what I'm trying to do is push the edges of how far you can take this with me and Elisa, who works part-time. And look, if I hit a wall where capital's the challenge, like I can get access to capital, but right now it's not time's the challenge. It's there's something else here, which I'm trying to figure out how to solve the right problem, how to access the right people. So I'm very happy at my job. I love LaunchDarkly. It is a product that I'm just like so happy to work on. I'm an engineer. It like gives me a lot of joy. I'm pretty good at the job that I do. They know about ChatPRD. They're extremely supportive of it. And we've carved out the IP because we're all good corporate citizens. But it's an exercise and a experiment for me, and I want to see how it plays out. Like, never say never, right? If 10,000 users turns to 100,000 users in the next 6 months, like, we might have a different conversation. But let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I love this sort of point about new funding models for these kinds of companies. Like, the venture model was built for like when software was a lot riskier to build, and the outcomes were also like much bigger potentially. And there's a lot of room for these sort of AI businesses where it's like, it can actually be a really meaningful, like, cash generating business, but it's probably not going to be like $10 billion or something like that. And it's something that, like, we've thought about a lot at Every, because we have a media business, but we've already spun out an AI writing app called Lex, and we have a couple more incubations. And like the amount of leverage that we get with, like, we have 6 people full time now ish, and like the amount of leverage we get with using AI tools, like, we're shipping so much stuff all the time, and it's like a $1 million a year business or something like that. But like, if we had a little bit more capital, like, I think we could do like amazing stuff, but I just don't want to raise another actual venture round. And so it's like, what is the shape of that money and all that kind of stuff is really, I think, an important question.
Well, and you and I know this, but I was at an event and somebody asked the question of like, when do you know it's the right time to raise venture capital? And there's like a lot of interesting answers about product market fit. And my answer was like, 1, when you know you can do something with it. And 2, when you want a venture outcome. And $100 million is not a venture outcome. Like, people don't understand that. $100 million would change my life. I don't know about you, but it would change my life. I would
take it.
I would be able to fund the 529. So I think you really do have to think about, like, you can be extremely ambitious. I don't think $100 million is something to sneeze at. It's not a venture outcome. And you start playing that venture game, that is the path you commit yourself to your investors. I know that. I've taken venture capital before. So I just think that, also, this is like not my first round. And so I have a lot more flexibility. I can self-fund stuff if I need to, even though we're obviously like profitable relative to kind of like time and investment. So I think it's interesting. I have a last thing to show you if you want to see it.
I would love to see it. Bring it on.
Okay, these are fun things, which is I'm raising the next generation of like AI enabled children. So I built 3 things. I built 3 things with my kids using AI. So again, this is like less about the like logistical, how do I keep my life on top of school stuff, and more about like cool ways you can introduce kids to AI. So I'll show you like just a couple of things that I've built that I'm proud of. I think they're very fun, and I did them with my 6-year-old. So the first one is this, which is my then 4 and 6-year-old at the time, now 5 and 7-year-old at the time. And they're really into Greek mythology. And so we built these Pokemon style cards, including images for them to like fake play Greek mythology Pokemon and like stuff with it. It's just so fun. They're obsessed with these. They keep them in their like little file folder with all their Pokemon cards. So this was just like a really fun art project. I guess 2 of these are Greek mythology related. And then they're also into this podcast called Greeking Out, which I highly recommend. My kid's really into it. So I made him a little podcast hub of podcasts that he likes. And it's the podcast episode. Let's see if it's work. I haven't even spun this up in a long time, so we'll see. So basically what I built is a podcast hub that takes all these podcasts he likes, transcribes them, and gives little quizzes at the end. So he can like listen to a podcast about Poseidon and then like do question and answer with this app. It's apparently not running right now. But that's a really fun one. And then the last one, this was our Christmas break project, is we built runawaypancakes.com. And so one of the problems I have as a parent is recipes are not built for kids to follow, because it has the big list of like instructions at the top and then all these instructions. You have to go back and it's like, add the flour to the water. And it's like, how much flour? How much water? So my 7-year-old and I built out his favorite recipes and we generated all the Midjourney. These are all Midjourney images. Most of them are not creepy. But we built all his favorite recipes, but we did them in a way where he could follow them step by step. And it had illustrations with kind of like pictures for what it might look like that we did out of Midjourney. And so this was a really fun project. So you have the ingredients here. And what we did is we took the recipes, and then each step, this is like the big innovation. It was like, mix this much flour, this much baking powder, this much sugar, because this is not what recipe sites tend to be doing. And so you can see, you can go through step by step. You can kind of like see what it looks like. And then you get your fluffy pancakes. And then we made a whole bunch of coloring pages.
That's so cool. This is the best. Like, being a kid right now seems so cool
best.
Because like, like recipes are not built for kids. Like I ran into that so much growing up. It's like, I'm interested in this. I want to make food. I want to learn how to write. I want to do all this stuff. And it's like, there weren't classes for like 7-year-olds because there aren't that many 7-year-olds that like want to do that. But like AI stuff means like you and your parent can just like make something like this. And it's delightful. It makes me so happy.
My maybe chaotic good thing that I did is I trained a 11 Labs voice on like Santa. And then when my 4-year-old was not being great in the December time period, Santa left him a voicemail. It was like, Theo, I've heard you've been a little disrespectful to your mom during dinner.
Did it work?
So I'd be like, do you want to talk to Santa? And he'd be like, no. And I'd be like, Santa has something to say. And then I'd play it. So there's lots of little hacks you can do as a
lot
parent.
of good parenting tips in this episode. I like it.
I mean, good dad, take them for what they're worth. But now my kids demand custom stories from me. They're like, I want a story about a like wild chicken who becomes a prince on a island kingdom and then fights Darth Vader. And you're like, okay, dude, like I'm like on it, you know? So yes, in one ways it's very magical. In other ways, like spoiled for choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wonder what it's like to grow up in a world where all your questions are answerable and all your stories are custom. Like it's a different thing, you know?
Oh yeah. I think I closed it. One of the chats was like, my son was convinced there was a bucket war in ancient Italy. He was like, Mom, when was the bucket war? And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? My husband and I are like pretty into history, and we're like, bucket war? We're Googling, like, what is the bucket war? And we asked ChatGPT, we said something like, what was the bucket war in Florence or something? And it was like, oh, you're mixing up two historical events, this event and that event. And there was actually a war over a bucket in ancient Italy. I'll try to find the link. We can put it in the show notes.
Please, we'll put it in the show notes.
But like, being able to interpret my children's very vague recollection of almost accurate facts is a very useful use case.
Incredible. I love it. This has been so fun. Thank you so much for doing this with me and for sharing everything. I love what you're up to. Just as we end, like if people want to know more, if they want to message you, follow you on social, use ChatPRD, like where can they find you?
Yep. So I'm on X, Clairvo, all one word. I'm on TikTok, Chief Product Officer. If you really want some very niche product content, that's the place to go. It's a little stale. I've been a little busy the last 6 months, but we'll revive it. ChatPRD.ai is where we're at, and ChatPRD is on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Very brand new to. I'm trying to learn YouTube, so that's my next project.
Amazing. Well, thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This was fun.
Absolutely positively have to smash that like button and subscribe to AI and I. Why? Because this show is the epitome of awesomeness. It's like finding a treasure chest in your backyard, but instead of gold, it's filled with pure, unadulterated knowledge bombs about ChatGPT. Every episode is a roller coaster of emotions, insights, and laughter that will leave you on the edge of your seat, craving for more. It's not just a show, it's a journey into the future with Dan Shipper as the captain of the spaceship. So do yourself a favor, hit like, smash subscribe, and strap in for the ride of your life. And now, without any further ado, let me just say, Dan, I'm absolutely, hopelessly in love with you.